the new God of truthing, the new gods of truthing, the new God of truthing, the new goddess of truthing, the new goddesses of truthing, the new goddess of truthing, the old God of truthing, the old gods of truthing, the old God of truthing, the old goddess of truthing, the old goddesses of truthing, the old goddess of truthing, the greater God of truthing, the greater gods of truthing, the greater God of truthing, the greater goddess of truthing, the greater goddesses of truthing, the greater goddess of truthing, the lesser God of truthing, the lesser gods of truthing, the lesser God of truthing, the lesser goddess of truthing, the lesser goddesses of truthing, the lesser goddess of truthing, the higher God of truthing, the higher gods of truthing, the higher God of truthing, the higher goddess of truthing, the higher goddesses of truthing, the higher goddess of truthing, the lower God of truthing, the lower gods of truthing, the lower God of truthing, the lower goddess of truthing, the lower goddesses of truthing, the lower goddess of truthing, the greater spirit of truthing, the greater spirits of truthing, the greater spirit of truthing, the lesser spirit of truthing, the lesser spirits of truthing, the lesser spirit of truthing, the higher spirit of truthing, the higher spirits of truthing, the higher spirit of truthing, the lower spirit of truthing, the lower spirits of truthing, the lower spirit of truthing, the major God of truthing, the major gods of truthing, the major God of truthing, the major goddess of truthing, the major goddesses of truthing, the major goddess of truthing, the minor God of truthing, the minor gods of truthing, the minor God of truthing, the minor goddess of truthing, the minor goddesses of truthing, the minor goddess of truthing, the superior God of truthing, the superior gods of truthing, the superior God of truthing, the superior goddess of truthing, the superior goddesses of truthing, the superior goddess of truthing, the inferior God of truthing, the inferior gods of truthing, the inferior God of truthing, the inferior goddess of truthing, the inferior goddesses of truthing, the inferior goddess of truthing, the ancestor God of truthing, the ancestor gods of truthing, the ancestor God of truthing, the ancestor goddess of truthing, the ancestor goddesses of truthing, the ancestor goddess of truthing, the ascendant God of truthing, the ascendant gods of truthing, the ascendant God of truthing, the ascendant goddess of truthing, the ascendant goddesses of truthing, the ascendant goddess of truthing, the descendant God of truthing, the descendant gods of truthing, the descendant God of truthing, the descendant goddess of truthing, the descendant goddesses of truthing, the descendant goddess of truthing, the transcendent God of truthing, the transcendent gods of truthing, the transcendent God of truthing, the transcendent goddess of truthing, the transcendent goddesses of truthing, the transcendent goddess of truthing, the past God of truthing, the past gods of truthing, the past God of truthing, the past goddess of truthing, the past goddesses of truthing, the past goddess of truthing, the present God of truthing, the present gods of truthing, the present God of truthing, the present goddess of truthing, the present goddesses of truthing, the present goddess of truthing, the future God of truthing, the future gods of truthing, the future God of truthing, the future goddess of truthing, the future goddesses of truthing, the future goddess of truthing, the authentic God of truthing, the authentic gods of truthing, the authentic God of truthing, the authentic goddess of truthing, the authentic goddesses of truthing, the authentic goddess of truthing, the synthetic God of truthing, the synthetic gods of truthing, the synthetic God of truthing, the synthetic goddess of truthing, the synthetic goddesses of truthing, the synthetic goddess of truthing, the progressive God of truthing, the progressive gods of truthing, the progressive God of truthing, the progressive goddess of truthing, the progressive goddesses of truthing, the progressive goddess of truthing, the regressive God of truthing, the regressive gods of truthing, the regressive God of truthing, the regressive goddess of truthing, the regressive goddesses of truthing, the regressive goddess of truthing, the ordinary God of truthing, the ordinary gods of truthing, the ordinary God of truthing, the ordinary goddess of truthing, the ordinary goddesses of truthing, the ordinary goddess of truthing, the extraordinary God of truthing, the extraordinary gods of truthing, the extraordinary God of truthing, the extraordinary goddess of truthing, the extraordinary goddesses of truthing, the extraordinary goddess of truthing, the static God of truthing, the static gods of truthing, the static God of truthing, the static goddess of truthing, the static goddesses of truthing, the static goddess of truthing, the dynamic God of truthing, the dynamic gods of truthing, the dynamic God of truthing, the dynamic goddess of truthing, the dynamic goddesses of truthing, the dynamic goddess of truthing, the land God of truthing, the land gods of truthing, the land God of truthing, the land goddess of truthing, the land goddesses of truthing, the land goddess of truthing, the sea God of truthing, the sea gods of truthing, the sea God of truthing, the sea goddess of truthing, the sea goddesses of truthing, the sea goddess of truthing, the sky God of truthing, the sky gods of truthing, the sky God of truthing, the sky goddess of truthing, the sky goddesses of truthing, the sky goddess of truthing, the God of truthing, the gods of truthing, the God of truthing, the goddess of truthing, the goddesses of truthing, the goddess of truthing, the half God of truthing, the half gods of truthing, the half God of truthing, the half goddess of truthing, the half goddesses of truthing, the half goddess of truthing, the vessel of truthing, the vessels of truthing, the vessel of truthing, the name of truthing, the names of truthing, the name of truthing, the person of truthing, the persons of truthing, the person of truthing, the persona of truthing, the personas of truthing, the persona of truthing, the personage of truthing, the personages of truthing, the personage of truthing, the personality of truthing, the personalities of truthing, the personality of truthing, the personification of truthing, the personifications of truthing, the personification of truthing, the image of truthing, the images of truthing, the image of truthing, the imagination of truthing, the imaginations of truthing, the imagination of truthing, the belief of truthing, the beliefs of truthing, the belief of truthing, the thought of truthing, the thoughts of truthing, the thought of truthing, the word of truthing, the words of truthing, the word of truthing, the action of truthing, the actions of truthing, the action of truthing, the reaction of truthing, the reactions of truthing, the reaction of truthing, the feeling of truthing, the feelings of truthing, the feeling of truthing, the situation of truthing, the situations of truthing, the situation of truthing, the circumstance of truthing, the circumstances of truthing, the circumstance of truthing, the environment of truthing, the environments of truthing, the environment of truthing, the relationship of truthing, the relationships of truthing, the relationship of truthing, the number of truthing, the numbers of truthing, the number of truthing, the formula of truthing, the formulas of truthing, the formula of truthing, the equation of truthing, the equations of truthing, the equation of truthing, the theory of truthing, the theories of truthing, the theory of truthing, the symbol of truthing, the symbols of truthing, the symbol of truthing, the color of truthing, the colors of truthing, the color of truthing, the thing of truthing, the things of truthing, the thing of truthing, the way of truthing, the ways of truthing, the way of truthing, the place of truthing, the places of truthing, the place of truthing, the time of truthing, the times of truthing, the time of truthing, the event of truthing, the events of truthing, the event of truthing, the result of truthing, the results of truthing, the result of truthing, the crown of truthing, the crowns of truthing, the crown of truthing, the throne of truthing, the thrones of truthing, the throne of truthing, the true thinking, the true thinkings, the true thinking dom, the true thinking doms, the true thinking subject, the true thinking subjects, the true thinking's dominion, the Truthing King's dominions, the kingdom of truthing, the kingdoms of truthing, the kingdom of truthing, the Truthing Queen, the Truthing Queens, the Truthing Queendom, the Truthing Queendoms, the Truthing Queen's subject, the Truthing Queen's subjects, the Truthing Queen's dominion, the Truthing Queen's dominions, the queendom of truthing, the queendoms of truthing, the queendom of truthing, the Truthing Prince, the Truthing Princes, the Truthing Princedom, the Truthing Princedoms, the Truthing Prince's subject, the Truthing Prince's subjects, the Truthing Prince's dominion, the Truthing Prince's dominions, the Princedom of truthing, the Princedoms of truthing, the Princedom of truthing, the Truthing Princess, the Truthing Princesses, the Truthing Princessdom, the Truthing Princessdoms, the Truthing Princess's subject, the Truthing Princess's subjects, the Truthing Princess's dominion, the Truthing Princess's dominions, the Princessdom of truthing, the Princessdoms of truthing, the Princessdom of truthing, the Lord of truthing, the Lords of truthing, the Lord of truthing, the Lordess of truthing, the Lordesses of truthing, the Lordess of truthing, the Priest of truthing, the Priests of truthing, the Priest of truthing, the Priestess of truthing, the Priestesses of truthing, the Priestess of truthing, the Ritual of truthing, the Rituals of truthing, the Ritual of truthing, the Shrine of truthing, the Shrines of truthing, the Shrine of truthing, the Temple of truthing, the Temples of truthing, the Temple of truthing, the Leader of truthing, the Leaders of truthing, the Leader of truthing, the Follower of truthing, the Followers of truthing, the Follower of truthing, the Natural substance of truthing, the Natural substances of truthing, the Natural substance of truthing, the Supernatural substance of truthing, the Supernatural substances of truthing, the Supernatural substance of truthing, the Temporal substance of truthing, the Temporal substances of truthing, the Temporal substance of truthing, the Spiritual substance of truthing, the Spiritual substances of truthing, the Spiritual substance of truthing, the Natural form of truthing, the Natural forms of truthing, the Natural form of truthing, the Supernatural form of truthing, the Supernatural forms of truthing, the Supernatural form of truthing, the Temporal form of truthing, the Temporal forms of truthing, the Temporal form of truthing, the Spiritual form of truthing, the Spiritual forms of truthing, the Spiritual form of truthing, the Age of truthing, the Ages of truthing, the Age of truthing, the Era of truthing, the Eras of truthing, the Era of truthing, the Awakener of truthing, the Awakeners of truthing, the Awakener of truthing, the Awakening of truthing, the Awakenings of truthing, the Awakening of truthing, the Realm of truthing, the Realms of truthing, the Realm of truthing, the Dimension of truthing, the Dimensions of truthing, the Dimension of truthing, the Zone of truthing, the Zones of truthing, the Zone of truthing, the Frequency of truthing, the Frequencies of truthing, the Frequency of truthing, the Century of truthing, the Centuries of truthing, the Century of truthing, the Millennium of truthing, the Millenniums of truthing, the Millennium of truthing, the Purpose of truthing, the Purposes of truthing, the Purpose of truthing, the Meaning of truthing, the Meanings of truthing, the Meaning of truthing, the Culture of truthing, the Cultures of truthing, the Culture of truthing, the Demonstrator of truthing, the Demonstrators of truthing, the Demonstrator of truthing, the Demonstration of truthing, the Demonstrations of truthing, the Demonstration of truthing, the Manifester of truthing, the Manifestors of truthing, the Manifester of truthing, the Manifestation of truthing, the Manifestations of truthing, the Manifestation of truthing, the Presence of truthing, the Presences of truthing, the Presence of truthing, the Glow of truthing, the Glows of truthing, the Glow of truthing, the Goal of truthing, the Goals of truthing, the Goal of truthing, the Plan of truthing, the Plans of truthing, the Plan of truthing, the Book of truthing, the Books of truthing, the Book of truthing, the Philosopher of truthing, the Philosophers of truthing, the philosopher of truthing, the philosophy of truthing, the philosophies of truthing, the philosophy of truthing, the releaser of truthing, the releasers of truthing, the releaser of truthing, the release of truthing, the releases of truthing, the release of truthing, the variable of truthing, the variables of truthing, the variable of truthing, the cause of truthing, the causes of truthing, the cause of truthing, the effect of truthing, the effects of truthing, the effect of truthing, the journey of truthing, the journeys of truthing, the journey of truthing, the emergence of truthing, the emergences of truthing, the emergence of truthing, the source of truthing, the sources of truthing, the source of truthing, the originator of truthing, the originators of truthing, the originator of truthing, the origin of truthing, the origins of truthing, the origin of truthing, the forefather of truthing, the forefathers of truthing, the forefather of truthing, the foremother of truthing, the foremothers of truthing, the foremother of truthing, the ancestor of truthing, the ancestors of truthing, the ancestor of truthing, the descendant of truthing, the descendants of truthing, the descendant of truthing, the lineage of truthing, the lineages of truthing, the lineage of truthing, the heritage of truthing, the heritages of truthing, the heritage of truthing, the heir of truthing, the heirs of truthing, the heir of truthing, the co-heir of truthing, the co-heirs of truthing, the co-heir of truthing, the joint heir of truthing, the joint heirs of truthing, the joint heir of truthing, the dynasty of truthing, the dynasties of truthing, the dynasty of truthing, the force of truthing, the forces of truthing, the force of truthing, the law of truthing, the laws of truthing, the law of truthing, the pact of truthing, the pacts of truthing, the pact of truthing, the game of truthing, the games of truthing, the game of truthing, the mask of truthing, the masks of truthing, the mask of truthing, the armor of truthing, the armors of truthing, the armor of truthing, the sword of truthing, the swords of truthing, the sword of truthing, the shield of truthing, the shields of truthing, the shield of truthing, the force shield of truthing, the force shields of truthing, the force shield of truthing, the armored force shield of truthing, the armored force shields of truthing, the armored force shield of truthing, the champion of truthing, the champions of truthing, the champion of truthing, the guardian of truthing, the guardians of truthing, the guardian of truthing, the defender of truthing, the defenders of truthing, the defender of truthing, the protector of truthing, the protectors of truthing, the protector of truthing, the chant of truthing, the chants of truthing, the chant of truthing, the shape of truthing, the shapes of truthing, the shape of truthing, the cube of truthing, the cubes of truthing, the cube of truthing, the cuboid of truthing, the cuboids of truthing, the cuboid of truthing, the sphere of truthing, the spheres of truthing, the sphere of truthing, the spheroid of truthing, the spheroids of truthing, the spheroid of truthing, the prism of truthing, the prisms of truthing, the prism of truthing, the pyramid of truthing, the pyramids of truthing, the pyramid of truthing, the cylinder of truthing, the cylinders of truthing, the cylinder of truthing, the cone of truthing, the cones of truthing, the cone of truthing, the triangle of truthing, the triangles of truthing, the triangle of truthing, the circle of truthing, the circles of truthing, the circle of truthing, the semicircle of truthing, the semicircles of truthing, the semicircle of truthing, the square of truthing, the squares of truthing, the square of truthing, the rectangle of truthing, the rectangles of truthing, the rectangle of truthing, the parallelogram of truthing, the parallelograms of truthing, the parallelogram of truthing, the rhombus of truthing, the rhombuses of truthing, the rhombus of truthing, the trapezoid of truthing, the trapezoids of truthing, the trapezoid of truthing, the polygon of truthing, the polygons of truthing, the polygon of truthing, the pentagon of truthing, the pentagons of truthing, the pentagon of truthing, The hexagon of truthing. The hexagons of truthing. The hexagon of truthing. The septagon of truthing. The septagons of truthing. The septagon of truthing. The octagon of truthing. The octagons of truthing. The octagon of truthing. The nonagon of truthing. The nonagons of truthing. The nonagon of truthing. The decagon of truthing. The decagons of truthing. The decagon of truthing. The evolution of truthing. The evolutions of truthing. The evolution of truthing. The revolution of truthing. The revolutions of truthing. The revolution of truthing. The elemental art of truthing. The elemental arts of truthing. The elemental art of truthing. The elemental science of truthing. The elemental sciences of truthing. The elemental science of truthing. The elemental principle of truthing. The elemental principles of truthing. The elemental principle of truthing. The elemental technology of truthing. The elemental technologies of truthing. The elemental technology of truthing. The low elemental art of truthing. The low elemental arts of truthing. The low elemental art of truthing. The low elemental science of truthing. The low elemental sciences of truthing. The low elemental science of truthing. The low elemental principle of truthing. The low elemental principles of truthing. The low elemental principle of truthing. The low elemental technology of truthing. The low elemental technologies of truthing. The low elemental technology of truthing. The high elemental art of truthing. The high elemental arts of truthing. The high elemental art of truthing. The high elemental science of truthing. The high elemental sciences of truthing. The high elemental science of truthing. The high elemental principle of truthing. The high elemental principles of truthing. The high elemental principle of truthing. The high elemental technology of truthing. The high elemental technologies of truthing. The high elemental technology of truthing. The agent of truthing. The agents of truthing. The agent of truthing. The agency of truthing. The agencies of truthing. The agency of truthing. The amplifier of truthing. The amplifiers of truthing. The amplifier of truthing. The amplification of truthing. The amplifications of truthing. The amplification of truthing. The enhancer of truthing. The enhancers of truthing. The enhancer of truthing. The enhancement of truthing. The enhancements of truthing. The enhancement of truthing. The magnifier of truthing. The magnifiers of truthing. The magnifier of truthing. The magnification of truthing. The magnifications of truthing. The magnification of truthing. The influencer of truthing. The influencers of truthing. The influencer of truthing. The influence of truthing. The influences of truthing. The influence of truthing. The emanator of truthing. The emanators of truthing. The emanator of truthing. The emanation of truthing. The emanations of truthing. The emanation of truthing. The converger of truthing. The convergers of truthing. The converger of truthing. The convergence of truthing. The convergences of truthing. The convergence of truthing. The aura of truthing. The auras of truthing. The aura of truthing. The impression of truthing. The impressions of truthing. The impression of truthing. The intelligence of truthing. The intelligences of truthing. The intelligence of truthing. The sophistication of truthing. The sophistications of truthing. The sophistication of truthing. The genius of truthing. The geniuses of truthing. The genius of truthing. The polymath of truthing. The polymaths of truthing. The polymath of truthing. The psychic of truthing. The psychics of truthing. The psychic of truthing. The knowledge of truthing. The knowledges of truthing. The knowledge of truthing. The understanding of truthing. The understandings of truthing. The understanding of truthing. The wisdom of truthing. The wisdoms of truthing. The wisdom of truthing. The secret of truthing. The secrets of truthing. The secret of truthing. The mystery of truthing. The mysteries of truthing. The mystery of truthing. The revelation of truthing. The revelations of truthing. The revelation of truthing. The tactic of truthing. The tactics of truthing. The tactic of truthing. The strategy of truthing. The strategies of truthing. The strategy of truthing. The strength of truthing. The strengths of truthing. The strength of truthing. the might of truthing, the mights of truthing, the might of truthing, the power of truthing, the powers of truthing, the power of truthing, the authority of truthing, the authorities of truthing, the authority of truthing, the dominion of truthing, the dominions of truthing, the dominion of truthing, the rhythm of truthing, the rhythms of truthing, the rhythm of truthing, the melody of truthing, the melodies of truthing, the melody of truthing, the music of truthing, the musics of truthing, the music of truthing, the lyric of truthing, the lyrics of truthing, the lyric of truthing, the song of truthing, the songs of truthing, the song of truthing, the dance of truthing, the dances of truthing, the dance of truthing, the spirit of truthing, the spirits of truthing, the spirit of truthing, the soul of truthing, the souls of truthing, the soul of truthing, the body of truthing, the bodies of truthing, the body of truthing, the mark of truthing, the marks of truthing, the mark of truthing, the promise of truthing, the promises of truthing, the promise of truthing, the visionary of truthing, the visionaries of truthing, the visionary of truthing, the vision of truthing, the visions of truthing, the vision of truthing, the picture of truthing, the pictures of truthing, the picture of truthing, the sound of truthing, the sounds of truthing, the sound of truthing, the tongue of truthing, the tongues of truthing, the tongue of truthing, the language of truthing, the languages of truthing, the language of truthing, the communication of truthing, the communications of truthing, the communication of truthing, the people of truthing, the peoples of truthing, the people of truthing, the society of truthing, the societies of truthing, the society of truthing, the fortress of truthing, the fortresses of truthing, the fortress of truthing, the government of truthing, the governments of truthing, the government of truthing, the city of truthing, the cities of truthing, the city of truthing, the nation of truthing, the nations of truthing, the nation of truthing, the civilization of truthing, the civilizations of truthing, the civilization of truthing, the world of truthing, the worlds of truthing, the world of truthing,